The fire fell from the sky like rain. Prince Daehyun watched from his command ship as the crystal cities below turned to liquid glass. His plasma breath had done this. 1 minute of flame from his mouth and an entire civilization melted into the ground. The Keltharian people screamed as their homes became puddles of burning crystal. Daehyun felt nothing. He had burned 17 worlds before this one. The screaming always stopped eventually. His scales shimmered copper red in the light of the burning planet. He stood 12 feet tall with wings that could block out suns. His eyes glowed like molten gold. Every part of him was built for destruction. The Draconeer Empire had ruled the galaxy for 300 years because of princes like him. Strong, merciless, unquestioning. Captain Minho stood beside him on the bridge. Minho was Draconeer too, though smaller than the prince. His scales were dark gray, marked with old battle scars. He had served Daehyun for 50 years. "The Keltharians are finished, my prince," Minho said quietly. "Should we move to the next system?" Daehyun nodded. He did not look away from the burning planet. Something about this particular fire bothered him, though he could not say what. The Keltharians had refused to pay their tribute to the Empire. 15 cargo ships of crystal due every year. They had sent only 10. The punishment for this was always the same. Always fire. "Prepare the fleet," Daehyun said. "We leave for New Jeju in 3 hours." Minho hesitated. That hesitation lasted only a second, but Daehyun noticed it. His captain had been hesitating more often lately. Small pauses. Quiet sighs. Daehyun did not ask why. He did not want to know. Far across the galaxy on the Council homeworld of Axis Prime, Ambassador Jiwon stood before the Galactic Council and begged them to stop this madness. She was human, which meant she was small compared to most species in the Council chamber. She barely reached 5 feet tall. Her hair had gone gray from stress. She had been the human ambassador for 20 years, and in those 20 years she had watched the Draconeer Empire burn her people's colonies one by one. "New Jeju is next," she said, her voice shaking. Not from fear, from rage. 2,000 humans live there, farmers, families, children. They grow rice and vegetables. They have delayed one grain shipment because their harvest was damaged by storms. One shipment. And for this, Prince Daehyun will burn their entire world. The council members sat in their high seats and said nothing. The Vexorian representative, a creature made of living shadow, shifted uncomfortably. The Horon ambassador, whose people looked like giant turtles, stared at the floor. No one met Jiwon's eyes. "Please," Jiwon said. "I'm begging you. Send ships, send diplomats, send anything. Just stop this from happening." The head of the council, an ancient being called Elder Voss, finally spoke. His voice was like grinding stones. "Ambassador Jiwon, we understand your concern, but the Draconeer Empire is too powerful. If we intervene, they will burn our worlds too. We cannot help you. We are sorry." They were not sorry. Jiwon could see it in their faces, in the way they looked away from her. They were afraid. Everyone in the galaxy was afraid of the Draconeer. Fear had turned the entire council into cowards. Jiwon left the chamber. Her assistant, a young human named Seokjin, waited for her outside. He was a scientist who studied alien psychology. He had come to Axis Prime hoping to find a way to make peace with the Draconeer. So far he had failed. "They refused again," Jiwon said. It was not a question. "Yes," Seokjin said. "I heard. I am sorry, Ambassador." Sorry does not save New Jeju. Jiwon sat down on a bench in the corridor. She suddenly felt very old and very tired. "I need to send a message to the colony. Tell them to evacuate. They have maybe 3 days before Daehyun arrives. 3 days. It was not enough time. New Jeju had underground shelters, but they were old and could not fit everyone. Some people would have to stay on the surface. Some people would burn. On New Jeju, the binary suns were setting. The terraced rice fields glowed gold and orange in the evening light. A 7-year-old boy named Hyunwoo ran through the fields, chasing a small flying insect that his grandmother said was good luck. His grandmother, Soonbak, watched him from the irrigation control station. She was old, her back bent from decades of farm work, but her eyes were still sharp. "Hyunwoo, come help me with this pump," she called. "Dinner will not cook itself." Hyunwoo caught the insect, whispered a wish to it, and let it go. Then he ran to his grandmother. "What are we having?" "Rice and vegetable stew," Soonbak said. "The same as always." "I like the same as always," Hyunwoo said seriously. Soonbok smiled and ruffled his hair. She did not tell him about the message she had received that morning. The warning from Ambassador Jiwon. The Draconeer were coming. She and the other colony leaders were meeting tonight to decide what to do. But for now, for this one evening, she wanted Hyunwoo to be happy. She wanted him to chase insects and eat stew and not know that death was falling toward them from the stars. Prince Daehyun stood in his private chambers studying a holographic map of New Jeju. The planet was small and green, covered mostly in agricultural land. Rice fields in the valleys, vegetable farms on the hillsides, orchards near the equator. It would burn easily. Organic matter always did. He traced his claw along the map, calculating the most efficient pattern of destruction. Start with the cities, small as they were. Then the fields. Make sure nothing could grow there again for at least 100 years. Leave the planet as a warning to others who thought about delaying their tribute. A message chimed on his console. It was from his mother, High Empress Mirai. Daehyun felt his scales tighten. His mother did not send casual messages. He opened the communication. His mother's face appeared in the hologram. She looked like him but larger, more scarred, more terrifying. She had conquered 12 star systems personally. She had never shown mercy. Not once. Daehyun, she said. I hear you are going to New Jeju. Yes, mother. We depart in 2 hours. Make the burning complete, Mirai said. The humans have been troublesome lately. They need to remember their place. Leave nothing alive. Nothing growing. Make it so thorough that other colonies will pay their tribute early out of fear. Yes, mother. And Daehyun? Mirai's eyes narrowed. I have been hearing things about you. That you hesitate sometimes. That you question orders. This concerns me. Daehyun's heart beat faster. In the Draconeer Empire, doubt was weakness. Weakness was death. I do not hesitate, mother. I serve the Empire. See that you do. Mirai's image vanished. Daehyun stood alone in his chamber for a long moment. Then he turned back to the map of New Jeju. His mother was right. He had been hesitating lately. When he burned the Keltharian cities, he had felt something strange. Something almost like regret. It had lasted only a moment, but it had been there. He could not afford regret. He was a prince of the Draconeer Empire. He was a weapon. Weapons did not feel. He closed the map and walked to the bridge. His fleet was ready. New Jeju was 3 days away at maximum speed. In 3 days, those green fields would be ash. Those families would be smoke. It would be his 17th world. Daehyun spread his wings and roared, and the sound echoed through the ship like a promise of fire. The journey had begun. The warning siren started at dawn. Hyunwoo woke to the sound of loud alarms and his grandmother shaking his shoulder. Get dressed quickly, Soonbok said. Her voice was calm, but Hyunwoo could see fear in her eyes. We need to go to the shelters. Why? Hyunwoo asked, rubbing sleep from his face. Just hurry. Outside, people were running. Families carried boxes of belongings. Children cried. The colony leader, Elder Taehyung, stood in the central square with a megaphone, directing people to the underground shelters. His voice kept breaking as he spoke. Everyone to shelter immediately. The Draconeer fleet has been spotted. They will arrive in 1 hour. Take only what you can carry. Move quickly, but do not panic. But people were panicking. Hyunwoo held his grandmother's hand tight as they joined the crowd rushing toward the shelter entrance. Someone pushed past them, knocking Soonbok down. Hyunwoo tried to help her up, but the crowd kept pushing. More people. More panic. Hyunwoo lost his grip on his grandmother's hand. Grandmother! He shouted. Hyunwoo! Her voice came from somewhere behind him. But the crowd pushed him forward toward the shelter entrance. He tried to fight back against the flow of people, but he was too small. The crowd carried him along like a river. Then someone grabbed his arm and pulled him sideways out of the crowd. It was his older brother, Youngsu. Youngsu was 19 and strong. He had been working in the mines on the far side of the colony. Where is grandmother? Youngsu demanded. I lost her. She fell and I lost her. Youngsu cursed. He looked at the crowd pouring into the shelter, then at the sky. Go into the shelter. I will find her. No, I want to help. Go. Youngsu pushed Hyunwoo toward the shelter entrance and ran back into the crowd. But Hyunwoo did not go into the shelter. He was 7 years old and scared, but he was also stubborn. His grandmother needed help. He would not hide while she was lost. He turned and ran away from the shelter back toward their house. The colony was almost empty now. Just a few stragglers running for safety. Hyunwoo ran past empty houses, past abandoned vegetable carts, past rice fields that swayed peacefully in the morning breeze. Everything looked so normal, so quiet. Then the sky turned dark. Hyunwoo looked up and saw the Draconeer ships. Massive and black, they blocked out the suns. One ship was larger than the others, shaped like a dragon with wings spread wide. That would be the prince's flagship. Hyunwoo had seen pictures of Draconeer ships in school, but pictures did not prepare him for the reality. The ships were enormous. They made him feel like an ant. One of the ships began to descend. It was coming down in the rice fields less than a mile from where Hyunwoo stood. He should run. He should hide. But he could not move. His legs would not work. The ship landed with a sound like thunder. The landing thrusters burned the rice fields black. Steam rose from the scorched earth. Then a door opened in the side of the ship and Prince Daehyun stepped out. Hyunwoo had never seen a Draconeer before, not in person. The prince was massive, at least twice the height of any human. His copper scales caught the sunlight and glowed like fire. His wings were folded against his back, each wing longer than a bus. His eyes burned with golden light. Smoke drifted from his nostrils with each breath. The prince was the most terrifying and most beautiful thing Hyunwoo had ever seen. Daehyun walked away from his ship, moving through the burned rice field toward the untouched sections. His officers stayed on the ship waiting for orders. The prince walked alone. Hyunwoo watched him from behind a storage building. He knew he should run. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but something kept him frozen in place. Maybe curiosity, maybe shock, or maybe something else, something he was too young to name. The prince stopped at the edge of the burned section. He stood there looking at the rice fields that still grew green and golden. The terraced paddies reflected the binary suns, creating patterns of light on the water. The prince stared at these patterns for a long moment. Then he did something strange. He knelt down. His massive body lowered until he was almost at ground level. He reached out one claw and touched the water in a rice paddy, gently, carefully, like he had never touched water before. Hyunwoo stepped out from behind the storage building without meaning to. His feet moved on their own. He walked toward the prince. Daehyun sensed movement and turned. His golden eyes locked onto Hyunwoo. The boy stopped, suddenly aware of what he had done. He was standing in an open field with a creature that could kill him with one breath. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The prince rose to his full height. Smoke curled from his nostrils. His claws extended. "You should not be here, human child." Hyunwoo's voice shook, but he managed to speak. "You look tired." Daehyun blinked. Of all the things he had expected the child to say, this was not one of them. "What? You look tired," Hyunwoo repeated. "And sad." No one had ever said such words to Daehyun. Not in his 247 years of life. Enemies begged for mercy. Servants offered praise. His mother gave orders. But no one had ever looked at him and seen tiredness, sadness. "I'm not sad," Daehyun said, but his voice was uncertain. "My grandmother says you can see sadness in someone's eyes," Hyunwoo said. "Even if they try to hide it. Your eyes look sad." Daehyun wanted to kill this child for his insolence. He raised his claw and fire gathered in his throat. One breath and the boy would be ash. But something stopped him. The child was not running, was not crying. He just stood there looking up at Daehyun with dark, curious eyes. "Why are you not afraid?" Daehyun asked. Hyunwoo thought about this. "I am afraid," he admitted. "But you are not hurting me yet, so maybe you will not hurt me. I have burned 17 worlds. That sounds lonely." Lonely. Daehyun felt something crack inside his chest. Some wall he had built 2 centuries ago. "You are a strange child." "Everyone says that," Hyunwoo agreed. He looked at the prince more carefully. "Are you thirsty? It is a hot day, and you have dust on your scales from landing." Daehyun looked down at himself. The boy was right. His scales were covered in dust and ash from the landing. He had not even noticed. "I do not need," but Hyunwoo was already running. Not away from the prince, but toward a nearby well. The old stone well that Hyunwoo's grandmother had built when the colony was first founded. Hyunwoo grabbed the bucket and lowered it down. The rope creaked. Water splashed. Then Hyunwoo pulled the bucket back up. He took a ladle from the hook on the well and filled it with cool, clear water. Then he walked back to the prince, carrying the ladle with both hands so he would not spill it. "Here," Hyunwoo said, holding the ladle up toward Daehyun. The prince stared at the offering. His claw trembled as he reached down. The ladle was tiny in his grasp, meant for human hands. He had to be careful not to crush it. He brought the ladle to his mouth and drank. The water was cool and sweet. It tasted like minerals and earth and something else, something Daehyun could not name. It tasted like kindness. He lowered the ladle and looked at the child. Hyunwoo smiled up at him. "See," the boy said. "That is better, right?" Daehyun's throat tightened. The fire inside him, the fire he had carried for 2 centuries, suddenly felt very far away. He looked at the ladle in his claw, at the boy who had offered him water, at the rice fields surrounding them, at the world he was supposed to burn. Captain Minho watched from the ship, his eyes wide. He had served Prince Daehyun for 50 years. He had seen the prince destroy cities, obliterate fleets, show no mercy to anyone, but he had never seen this. His prince kneeling in a rice field, accepting water from a human child. Something was happening, something impossible, and Minho did not know if he should be terrified or hopeful. Daehyun stood in the rice field for a long time, holding the empty ladle. Hyunwoo waited patiently, like the prince might want more water. Above them, the Draconair fleet waited in orbit. Inside the ships, officers checked their weapons. Plasma cannons charged, fire bombs armed. Everyone expected the order to begin the burning. The order did not come. On the flagship, Captain Minho spoke quietly into his communication device. "My prince, the fleet awaits your command. Should we begin the bombardment?" Daehyun heard the question through his earpiece. His claw tightened on the ladle, nearly crushing it. He should give the order. His mother expected results. The Empire demanded obedience. New Jeju had failed to send their full tribute. The punishment was fire. It had always been fire. "My prince?" Minho's voice again, uncertain now. Daehyun looked down at Hyunwoo. The boy tilted his head, waiting. There was no fear in his face. No judgment. Just patience. "Not yet," Daehyun said finally. "I am surveying the target." It was a lie. He was not surveying anything. He was stalling, and he did not know why. Hyunwoo smiled suddenly. "Do you want to see my grandmother's garden?" "It is very nice. She grows tomatoes this big." He held his small hands apart to show the size. Every part of Daehyun's training said to refuse, to burn this place and leave. But that crack in his chest had grown wider. The wall inside him was crumbling. "Show me," he heard himself say. Hyunwoo's smile grew brighter. He started walking, and Daehyun followed. The prince of the Draconair Empire, destroyer of 17 worlds, followed a 7-year-old human boy through a vegetable garden. The garden was on the hillside behind the main colony. Neat rows of plants grew in terraced beds. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, squash. There were fruit trees at the edges, heavy with almost ripe fruit. An irrigation system carried water from a spring, feeding each plant through carefully placed channels. Everything was organized, maintained, loved. "My grandmother designed the irrigation," Hyunwoo explained, walking between the rows. "She says water is life. You have to take care of water, and water takes care of everything else. See these channels? They bring water to each plant, but not too much. Too much water is bad. Too little water is bad. You have to find the right balance." Daehyun listened. He did not know why he was listening. He should not care about human irrigation systems. But Hyunwoo's voice was enthusiastic and pure. The boy loved this garden. He loved explaining it. "This is composting," Hyunwoo continued, showing Daehyun a large bin full of decomposing plant matter. "We put old plants here, and they turn into food for new plants. Nothing is wasted. Everything becomes something else. Grandmother says that is how life works. Death becomes life. Endings become beginnings. Death becomes life." Daehyun had only known the first part. He had created much death. He had never thought about what came after. They walked through the entire garden. Hyunwoo talked about each plant, each system, each small detail that made the garden work. Daehyun found himself asking questions. How deep did the roots go? How long until harvest? What happened when the winter came? Hyunwoo answered everything with the confidence of a child who had learned from a patient teacher. His grandmother had taught him well. Finally, they reached the top of the hill. From here, they could see the whole colony. The houses with their solar panels, the rice fields spreading out in green and gold terraces, the orchards along the river, the community hall where people gathered for celebrations, the school where children learned. Daehyun saw all of it, really saw it, not as a target to destroy, but as something that existed, something people had built together from barren rock and empty soil, a home. "We have been here for 30 years, Hyunwoo said quietly. "My grandmother was one of the first people to come. She says when they arrived there was nothing, just rocks and dust, but they built all this. They made life where there was no life." "Why?" Daehyun asked. The question surprised him. He had not meant to ask it. "Because we can," Hyunwoo said simply. "Humans like to build things. We like to grow things. My teacher says it is what makes us human. We see empty space and think, what could be there? Then we make it real." Daehyun looked at his claws. He had used them to tear down so many things. He had never built anything. In 247 years, he had only destroyed. It had never occurred to him to do anything else. "I am supposed to burn this," he said. He did not know why he was telling this to a child. "I know," Hyunwoo said. "Everyone knows. That is why they are in the shelters. You should be in a shelter too. I got lost in the crowd. I was looking for my grandmother." Hyunwoo looked worried for the first time. "I hope she is okay." Daehyun felt something twist in his chest. This child had lost his grandmother in the evacuation. The evacuation that happened because of Daehyun. Because the prince was coming to kill them all. "Come," Daehyun said. "We will find her." They walked back down the hill toward the colony. Daehyun called Captain Minho. "Send scouts to locate an elderly human female. She would have been separated from the others during evacuation. Bring her to the central square, unharmed." Minho was silent for a moment. "My prince, should we not begin the— Do as I command." Daehyun's voice was sharp. Minho obeyed. While they waited, Hyunwoo showed the prince more of the colony. The school with its walls covered in children's drawings. The community hall where families celebrated harvests and holidays. The small clinic where Dr. Seokjin had worked before becoming Ambassador Ji-won's assistant. The playground with swings and slides built from recycled materials. Each place had a story. Hyunwoo knew all the stories. He told them to Daehyun with the unconscious joy of a child who loved his home. Daehyun listened, and something inside him, something he thought was dead, began to wake up. After an hour, Captain Minho reported that they had found Grandmother Sunbok. She was safe, hiding in a tool shed, and they were bringing her to the central square. When they arrived, Sunbok saw Hyunwoo standing next to the massive dragon prince and nearly collapsed with relief. "Hyunwoo!" She ran to him, ignoring Daehyun completely, and pulled the boy into her arms. "I thought you were in the shelter. I thought you were safe." "I got lost," Hyunwoo said, "but I am okay. The prince helped me find you." Sunbok looked up at Daehyun for the first time. Her eyes were sharp and unafraid. She did not bow, did not beg. She simply looked at him, studying his face the same way she might study a plant that was not growing correctly. "You are the one who burns worlds," she said. "Yes. Are you going to burn ours?" Daehyun opened his mouth. The answer should be yes. The answer had always been yes. But looking at this old woman who had built irrigation systems and taught her grandson about composting, looking at the boy who had offered him water, Daehyun found that he could not say the word. "I do not know," he said instead. It was the first honest thing he had said in a century. Sunbok nodded slowly. "Come with me," she said. "I will make tea." "You look like you need tea." And before Daehyun could protest, before he could remember that he was a prince and she was a human farmer who owed him tribute, Sunbok took his claw in her weathered hand and led him toward her house. Captain Minho, watching from the ship, felt his world turning upside down. High above, the Draconeer fleet continued to wait. And in orbit around New Jeju, Ambassador Ji-won's emergency transport ship had just arrived. Ji-won and Dr. Seokjin ran from their ship toward the colony, expecting to find ash and ruins. Instead, they found Prince Daehyun sitting at a wooden table in a farmhouse, drinking tea from a cup too small for his claws, while a 7-year-old boy explained to him the difference between determinate and indeterminate tomato plants. The universe had gone insane. Or maybe, just maybe, it had finally found its sanity. High Empress Mirai received the report 3 hours after Daehyun was supposed to begin burning New Jeju. "The prince has not given the fire order," her intelligence officer reported, his voice shaking. "He is on the planet's surface, with the humans. He has been there for several hours." Mirai crushed the armrest of her command throne. Metal crumpled under her claws. "Explain." "We do not understand it, Empress." He landed to survey the target. Then he stopped. "He is currently in a human dwelling. Our scouts report he is drinking tea. Tea. Mirai's voice was deadly quiet. Yes, Empress. With an elderly human female and a human child. Mirai stood. Her scales, darker and more scarred than her son's, seemed to absorb all light in the room. She had conquered 12 star systems. She had never shown mercy, not once. And now her youngest son, her weapon, her instrument of imperial will, was drinking tea with humans instead of burning them. Prepare my ship, she said. I will handle this personally. The officer bowed and fled. Mirai's ship was the largest in the Draconeer fleet. It was called the Endless Flame, and it had reduced more worlds to ash than any other vessel in the Empire. When it entered the new Jeju system, every sensor on every ship detected it. When it began its descent to the planet's surface, the ground itself trembled. In Sunbok's kitchen, Hyunwoo looked up from the drawings he was showing Daehyun. What is that sound? Daehyun's scales went rigid. He knew that engine sound. He had known it since he was a hatchling. My mother is here. Sunbok, who had been explaining her composting system to the prince, went very still. The Empress herself? Yes. Daehyun stood, his head nearly touching the ceiling. You should go to the shelters. All of you, now. Will she burn us? Hyunwoo asked. Daehyun looked at the boy. At this child who had offered him water and shown him gardens and taught him that things could grow instead of only burning. I will not let her. It was a promise. The moment he spoke it, Daehyun knew he had just committed treason against the Empire. Against his own mother. Against everything he had been trained to be. Sunbok gripped his claw. Her hand was so small compared to his, but her grip was strong. Then we stand with you. No, you are human. She will kill you without thought. She might kill you too, Sunbok pointed out. You should not face that alone. Ambassador Jiwon burst through the door with Dr. Shokjin right behind her. The Empress is landing. We have maybe 5 minutes. We need to evacuate the colony immediately. But before anyone could move, the endless flame touched down in the central square. The impact shook buildings. Windows cracked. Then the ship's door opened and High Empress Mirai emerged. She was magnificent and terrible. Her scales were the color of old blood, marked with scars from 1,000 battles. She was 15 feet tall, larger than Daehyun. Her wings spread wide enough to cast the entire square into shadow. When she breathed, smoke poured from her nostrils like fog. She saw Daehyun immediately. Her golden eyes narrowed. Explain yourself. Daehyun walked out of the house to face her. Behind him, Sunbok, Hyunwoo, Jiwon, and Seokjin watched from the doorway. Around the square, other colonists began emerging from their shelters, drawn by curiosity and terror. I have decided not to burn New Jeju, Daehyun said. His voice was steady, though his heart raced. Decided. Mirai's voice dripped with contempt. You do not decide. You obey. I gave you an order. I am disobeying it. The square went silent. In the entire history of the Draconeer Empire, no prince had ever openly defied the Empress. Not and survived, Mirai moved faster than something her size should be able to move. She crossed the square in 3 strides and struck Daehyun across the face. The sound echoed like thunder. Daehyun stumbled but did not fall. You disgrace our bloodline, Mirai snarled. You disgrace the Empire. These humans have corrupted you. They have awakened me, Daehyun said, straightening. Blood ran down his face from where her claws had cut him. I have burned 17 worlds, Mother. I have killed millions, and I am done. You are done when I say you are done. Mirai turned toward Sunbok's house. Fire gathered in her throat. I will show you what happens to those who corrupt princes of the Empire. Daehyun spread his wings and moved between his mother and the house. No. Mother and son faced each other. The air between them crackled with heat. Every human in the square knew they were watching something that could end in all their deaths. Then Hyunwoo did something brave and foolish. He walked out of the house past Daehyun's protective wing and approached the Empress. Sunbok tried to grab him, but he was too quick. No, Jiwon shouted. Child, get back! But Hyunwoo kept walking until he stood directly in front of High Empress Mirai. He looked up at her with those dark, curious eyes. In his hands, he carried a flask of water from the well. You must be thirsty too, Hyunwoo said. He held up the flask. Would you like some water? For a long moment, no one breathed. Mirai stared down at this tiny human child who was offering her water. The same water his grandmother had drawn from the well. The same kindness he had shown her son. Mirai could kill him with one breath. Everyone knew it. Hyunwoo knew it. But he stood there anyway. arms extended, offering water to the most powerful and most feared being in the galaxy. Mirai's claw rose. Daehyun roared and lunged forward, but he was too far away. He would not reach Hyunwoo in time. Then Mirai's claw gently took the flask. She looked at it, at the water inside, at the child who had offered it. Something flickered across her face. Something that might have been confusion. Or pain. Why? She asked. Her voice was quieter now. Almost vulnerable. Because you look thirsty, Hyunwoo said simply. And tired, and sad. Just like your son did. I am not sad. But Mirai's voice shook when she said it. My grandmother says everyone is sad sometimes. Even empresses, even dragons. She says that is okay. Being sad just means you are alive. Mirai stared at this child for a very long time. Then, slowly, she brought the flask to her mouth and drank. The water tasted like earth and minerals and something else. Something she had not tasted in 300 years of conquest. It tasted like kindness offered freely. Without fear. Without conditions. She lowered the flask. What is your name, human child? Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo. Mirai said the name carefully, like she was tasting something new. She looked at Daehyun, at the blood on his face, at the way he had spread his wings to protect these humans. Then she looked at Sunbok, at Ambassador Jiwon, at all the humans watching from the square. Your grandmother, Mirai said to Hyunwoo, the one who draws this water. I would speak with her. Sunbok stepped forward. She moved slowly, painfully, her old bones protesting. But she walked right up to the Empress and looked her in the eye. I am Sunbok. You built this colony. I helped. We all built it together. Show me what you have built. It was not a request, but it was not quite an order either. It was something in between, something uncertain. Sunbok smiled. Come, I will show you the gardens. And just as she had led Daehyun, she led High Empress Mirai through the colony, past the rice fields, through the vegetable gardens, along the irrigation channels, into the orchards. The Empress asked questions. Sunbok answered. Daehyun followed, still bleeding, still ready to fight if his mother turned violent. But Mirai did not turn violent. She walked through the gardens, touching plants with careful claws, listening to Sunbok explain about soil composition and crop rotation and the difference between annual and perennial vegetables. She saw what her son had seen. Life built carefully, lovingly, from nothing. As the binary suns began to set, Sunbok invited the Empress to dinner. Mirai accepted. They sat around a table too small for dragons. They ate rice and vegetable stew made from the garden's harvest. Hyunwoo explained to the Empress about bean plants and their nitrogen-fixing properties. Mirai listened. For the first time in centuries, the destroyer of worlds sat quietly and learned. No one knew what would happen next. But in that moment, around that table, something impossible was happening. The violence was stopping. The burning was paused. And in the space that opened up, something new could perhaps grow. High Empress Mirai did not soften immediately. 300 years of conquest could not be undone by one dinner. But she did not burn New Jeju. When she returned to her ship that night, the planet still lived beneath the stars. That alone was a miracle. I do not understand what happened here, she told Daehyun before she left. But I will not kill you for it, not yet. Return to the homeworld in 1 month. The High Council will decide what to do with you. It was a delay. Not a pardon, but not an execution either. Daehyun would take it. After his mother's ship departed, Daehyun stood in the central square with Captain Minho. Most of the Draconeer fleet had left with the Empress. Only Daehyun's flagship remained, along with his personal guard. 20 Draconeer warriors, all of whom had followed him for decades, all of whom had watched him refuse to burn New Jeju. What will you do, my prince? Minho asked quietly. Daehyun looked at the gardens on the hillside, at the houses with lights in their windows, at the families emerging from shelters, cautiously returning to their lives. I do not know, but I cannot go back to what I was. Then neither can we, Minho said. Behind him, the other 19 guards nodded. We follow you, my prince, whatever comes next. In the following weeks, something strange happened on New Jeju. Daehyun did not leave. He stayed. He asked Sunbok if she would teach him about agriculture. She agreed. The prince of the Draconeer Empire learned to plant seeds. His claws, made for tearing and killing, learned gentleness. He worked in the gardens, carefully transplanting seedlings, repairing irrigation channels, harvesting vegetables. The work was hard and humbling. He made mistakes. He accidentally crushed plants. He overwatered crops. He got dirt under his scales. But slowly, carefully, he learned. The colonists watched this with confusion and wonder. Some were afraid to come near him. Others, encouraged by Hyunwoo's fearlessness, began to approach. They taught him their techniques. They shared meals with him. They learned that dragons could change. Captain Minho and the other guards joined the work. 20 Draconeer warriors learned to farm. They were clumsy at first. Their massive bodies not meant for delicate work. But they tried. And trying, they discovered something they had never known in conquest. They discovered purpose without destruction. Word spread across the galaxy. Somehow, news of what happened on New Jeju reached other worlds. The story grew as it traveled. A prince had refused to burn. A child had offered water. An empress had shared a meal. On Axis Prime, Ambassador Jiwon stood before the Galactic Council once more. This time she did not beg. She proposed something new. The Draconeer have paused their burning campaign. This is our chance, not for revenge, but for something better. I propose the Restoration Accord. What is this accord? Elder Voss asked. Instead of tribute, we offer teaching. Any species that wishes to learn from humanity can come to our colonies. We will teach agriculture, irrigation, sustainable building, community organization. We will share what we know freely, including with the Draconeer. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Share with the Draconeer? They have destroyed our worlds. Yes, Jiwon said calmly. They have. And we cannot forget that, but we can choose what comes next. We can choose gardens over graveyards. The vote was close, but it passed. 3 months after Daehyun landed on New Jeju, the first students arrived. They came from species the Draconeer had oppressed. Keltharians whose crystal cities had been melted, Harans whose shell homes had been crushed, Vexorians whose shadow gardens had been burned by plasma fire. They came cautiously, fearfully. They came to New Jeju and saw Prince Daehyun covered in mud, working in a rice field. They saw Draconeer warriors building greenhouses. They saw human teachers showing alien students how to cultivate soil. The Keltharian representative, a crystalline being named Yoonji, approached Daehyun on his 3rd day there. She had lost her entire family when he burned her homeworld. I cannot forgive you, she said. Her voice chimed like breaking glass. I do not ask for forgiveness, Daehyun replied. He did not look away from her crystalline eyes. What I did cannot be undone, but I can try to build instead of burn. If you wish to witness that, you are welcome here. Yoonji stayed. She learned to grow vegetables in crystalline soil. She sent reports back to the few surviving Keltharians. Slowly more came. Not to forgive, but to witness, to see if change was real. On the Draconeer homeworld, Daehyun's defiance created fractures. The High Council divided. Traditional members demanded his execution. But younger Draconeer, warriors tired of endless conquest, began to question centuries of doctrine. Commander Bora, Daehyun's older sister, came to New Jeju to see for herself what had changed her brother. She arrived expecting corruption or madness. Instead, Hyunwoo, now 8 years old, showed her the orchards. Fruit trees grew there now, planted by Draconeer and human hands working together. Why do you do this? Bora asked her brother as they walked among the trees. Because I looked at what I had burned and finally saw what I had destroyed, Daehyun said. Lives, hopes, gardens, everything that makes existence worth living. I cannot bring back what I burned, but I can plant trees that will live for centuries after I am gone. Bora touched a young apple tree. Its leaves were green and healthy. Mother will never accept this. I know, the Empire will fracture over this, yes, and good. Bora's voice was fierce. She was crying. Draconeer did not cry. It was impossible. But water ran down her scaled face like rain. I am tired of burning, brother. I am so tired. They stood together in the orchard. 2 dragons learning that tears were not weakness. More Draconeer came, young ones, curious about this prince who planted instead of destroyed. Older warriors who secretly harbored doubts. They came to New Jeju and learned. They brought seeds back to their own worlds. Gardens began growing in places that had only known fire. High Empress Mirai watched this from her throne. She did not approve, but she did not stop it either. Something in her had shifted during that dinner in Soonbok's kitchen. She could not name what it was, but she allowed the change to continue. 2 years passed. New Jeju became a school. Students from 17 species learned agriculture there. The colony expanded. More gardens, more orchards, more fields. Hyunwoo, now 9, became one of the youngest teachers, specializing in explaining complex concepts to beginners. Daehyun worked in the fields every day. His copper scales were now permanently stained with soil. His claws, once used only for killing, now knew the feel of 1,000 different seeds. He would never be forgiven by those he had hurt. He knew that. He worked anyway. One morning, a ship arrived from the Draconeer homeworld. From it emerged a young dragon, barely more than a hatchling. His name was Junho, Daehyun's nephew. He was only 70 years old, barely an adult by Draconeer standards. Junho landed in the central square, where once Mirai had landed in fury. But Junho came alone, unarmed. He looked around at the gardens, at the mixed groups of students learning together, at his uncle covered in mud and smiling. "My mother sent me," Junho said. "Commander Bora. She says I should learn from you. What do you wish to learn? How to build instead of burn?" Daehyun felt something warm in his chest. Hope, perhaps, or joy. Emotions he was still learning to name. "Come, I will show you." They walked to the fields together. Hyunwoo ran to meet them, excited to teach another dragon about farming. He put a seed in Junho's claw and explained how to plant it. "You have to be gentle," Hyunwoo said. "Press it into the soil just deep enough. Not too deep. And then water it and wait. Growing things takes time." Junho planted his first seed, then another, then another. By the end of the day, he had planted an entire row of beans. His claws were dirty. His scales were dusty. He had never felt more purposeful in his life. 5 years after Daehyun first landed on New Jeju, the orchards spread across 7 planets. Gardens grew where fire had once burned. Former warriors taught agriculture to anyone who wanted to learn. The Draconeer Empire still existed, but it had transformed. Tribute became trade. Conquest became collaboration. Not everyone accepted the change. There were still Draconeer who clung to the old ways. Still species who could not forgive. The transformation was incomplete and imperfect. But it was happening. On the 5th anniversary of the day Daehyun landed, they held a celebration in the New Jeju orchards. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species attended. They ate food grown in gardens that had once been marked for burning. They shared stories of growth and change. Hyunwoo, now 12 years old, stood with Daehyun under an apple tree they had planted together. The tree was thriving, already bearing fruit. "Did you ever think this would happen?" Hyunwoo asked. Daehyun looked around at the celebration, at dragons and humans working side by side, at Keltharians teaching Draconeer about crystalline agriculture, at his mother, High Empress Mirai, sitting with grandmother Sunbok, the 2 old beings discussing irrigation methods. "No," Daehyun admitted. "When I came here, I came to burn. I expected fire and death. Instead, you offered me water. It was just water. It was everything." Daehyun placed his claw gently on Hyunwoo's shoulder. "You taught me that kindness is stronger than fire. That building is more powerful than burning. That even dragons can change." A ship descended from orbit. Another group of students arriving. Among them, young Draconeer barely older than Junho, coming to learn how to cultivate instead of conquer. Hyunwoo smiled and waved to the newcomers. "Come on," he said to Daehyun. "Let's go show them the gardens." They walked together toward the landing area, the dragon prince and the human boy who had saved him. Behind them, the orchards stretched across the hills heavy with fruit. Above them, the binary suns shone on a galaxy that was slowly, carefully learning to grow. The burning had stopped. The gardens were spreading, and in the soil they planted together, humans and dragons both discovered what it meant to be truly alive.